Hey, everybody, and welcome to Your Next. I'm your host, Jerome, and I've got Justin Goodbread in with me today. I think he's in Tennessee, but he could be somewhere in the Caribbean. He might be somewhere overseas. I mean, this man has done so many phenomenal things over the course of his career. He doesn't look his age, so you might think he's in his 30s, maybe his 40s, but he's been working for longer than that. So, Justin, so good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Jerome, man, I'm looking forward to our conversation, brother. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you uniquely and how we can impact the audience that you have the honor and privilege to serve. So if my humble story can help somebody else succeed and excel further than their other dreams, man, then I've lived a fulfilled life.
Well, if your story is humble, then I don't know what extraordinary looks like because you've done some pretty cool things. So Justin hasn't had one, he hasn't had two, he hasn't had three. It might, I don't know. Justin, how many exits have you had, man?
I've had 6 companies that I've started and sold and exited for values between 6 figures to 8 figures. And I helped a company that I became a major shareholder in double its value from an 8 figure to a 9 figure value that I helped exit that company. So I've had a total of now 7 exits I've been directly participating in.
Directly participated in 7 exits. Kind of, I mean, most people don't do one. So doing it successfully 7 times is with real value. We're not talking a $50,000 deal where we just sold the assets. We're building real enterprise value, especially when you're getting 8 and 9 figures. So that sets the stage because you probably had to figure some things out. Now, I was listening to your podcast last week, or maybe it was the week before. I was sitting on the beach and I said, let me cue up some good stuff. And I hear this conversation about, not being run around by your business and being able to take time off. And there might have been some hunting in there or something like that, in like November, you like to get in the woods, and I was like, man, who is this guy? Because most people trade in their 9 to 5 for a 5 to 9. And so efficiency is something that I'm chasing. Leverage is something that I'm chasing. And I'm trying to help all the folks that I work with chase and actually achieve and, execute. And so tell me a little bit about this. Did you just come out efficient, or did some things happen along the way that helped you realize that efficiency and compressing time was really important?
You know, what's interesting about that question, your dialogue, is that we have to reflect on the fact that there are seasons of life. Birds wrote an amazing song, "To Everything There's a Season, Turn, Turn, Turn." That's actually written out of the wisest man ever lived, Solomon, who said, there's a season, there's a time to reap, there's a time to rejoice, there's a time to win, there's a time to lose. There's all these times in life. For so many entrepreneurs, we want balance or we want efficiency in the early days, when the reality is in the season of the startup phase in business, as we're learning the ropes, if you will, as we're trying to hone our craft, as we're trying to find out who exactly can we serve and how can we solve their problems better than anybody else out there. During that season, it's not efficient. It feels chaotic. It feels like we're chasing our tail. People often say, Justin, I will live a balanced life. I don't think there's such a thing as a balanced life. There's a blended life. Wherever you're at, be there has always been my philosophy. So in my infancy, when I was starting my first couple of businesses, just like you said, I was working the 9 to 5. I mean, the 5 in the morning to 9 at night. And so many entrepreneurs, especially with today's generation, we miss that. In the early days, we don't have money, but we have time. And we're trying to trade our time for dollars and our time for skills. And we're constantly failing, and we're constantly failing forward, hopefully recovering after each failure to move forward and on our journey. So to answer your question directly, the first 15 years of my career, as I was starting and selling many companies, it was not efficient in the sense of I have the time to go hunting and fishing and play with my kids and take 2 and 3 and 4 months off a year while still at the same time making a very good income and building enterprise value. But I had this experience, Roman, you and I were talking about it before we turned the mics on, or recording on. I had this experience with a friend of mine in West Virginia. He has been a business owner for 40 years. He's a deep friend of mine. I would say he's about 25 years older than me. And we're sitting in this mountaintop and we're looking down into his yard that has all of this heavy equipment, millions of dollars worth of heavy equipment. And he said, Justin, I'm broke. Now, he wasn't broke in the sense of no income, no asset. He was broke in the sense of, he said, I have to continue to work at the same rate I'm working at now in order to provide the lifestyle that I'm used to. I have no way to exit out of this thing. And in that moment, it was almost like this epiphany came up, and I said, I don't want to be him 25, 30 years from now. So what can I change now in my life to help me circumvent that? How do I not make the same mistakes that so many of our brothers and sisters out there who are in business owners? How do I not make the same mistakes that they made? So for me, it all came about to how do I leverage my time to focus on the number 1 or number 2 gifts that God equipped me with. Only those, lean into my strengths and subvert all of my weaknesses. Now, in the infancy of that discovery, what I discovered is it costs some money to surf off, to shift off those things, which I'm not efficient at. But the amount of money that I was spending, eventually I was able to make more because I was focusing on my strongest gifts and my talent. So to your question, efficiency it comes as we narrow our focus on exactly what we are called to do, exactly what our mission is for our business, and exactly who we are to serve. And we look at our strengths, and then we can lean into that delegation and time management.
Now, all your businesses were in the same industry and you did the exact same thing over and over again, right?
No, they actually were. Surprisingly, my very first company was a landscape company that my dad's had taught me this, Jerome, is the power of being a business owner. I was 15 years old. He said, son, if you don't have a job by this weekend, don't come home. And that's a big deal as a homeschool kid 30 something years ago. Homeschooling wasn't even popular at that point. We're a small family, a small community. And he's like, don't have a job, don't come home. And he meant it. He wasn't college educated, but he was a good old country boy who kept to his word and had unbelievable values that we all would want our children to have. Well, that led me into building a landscape company. Then, lo and behold, my wife, who is of the Filipino nationality, she came in life. We moved to South Georgia, and for the first time ever, Joel, I dealt with racism. I was never raised to be a racist. I don't understand it. I hate hatred of all flavors, but I saw my wife and the evil of racism attack her. So we sold the company. We moved from a little small town that was my home and moved back up here to East Tennessee, where we call Knoxville our home. And I found myself in the financial services industry selling insurance. I don't like selling insurance. I'm not a sales guy. I'm a business owner. And I quickly made a business, sold it. And then I found myself in a position where I was helping dentists buy practices, scale the practices, and sell the practices. All these companies were solicited for sale for me. I didn't go out and say, I'm going to sell it. People came to me and said, hey, I want to pay you a lot of money for this company, these systems you built. Then my last three companies was a media company, a consulting company for broad-based business owners, and another financial services company. So multiple different industries all around one thing. And that is, I know how to build a company that it creates enterprise value and allows me as the owner and my team to have liberty and freedom.
So I knew that it wasn't in the same industry, but I asked the question the way I did because I think a lot of founders think they're only good at one thing, right? And it's whatever business that they're running right now. And it's the only thing they can ever do. And that's why they're going to die in a meeting, or that's why they're going to never exit their business, which is a farce because 100% of business owners exit. But you have transferable skills. The thing that really piqued my interest was you said you kind of lean into your strengths and know what you're good at. How'd you figure that out? And then how'd you figure out that those skills were transferable?
I think we all know what our strengths are. And those are the things that we like doing. We also know what our strengths are not. Those are the things that we don't like doing. So one of the challenges when I'm coaching today financial advisors on how to rapidly scale their companies is I'll say, hey, at the end of the day, every business owner can do this. This is an easy exercise that'll help you create freedom for yourself. At the end of the day, I want you to list down everything that you did that day. So literally, I have about a 40-minute drive that I drive from my farm in East Tennessee to my physical office. And so whenever I get back in the truck, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'll hit record. Now I use ChatGPT and I'll say, hey, here's what I did today. I want you to organize this in a list of items. So I'll organize a list of items. And it would be, hey, I had a podcast with Jerome. I wrote 3 emails to these prospective clients. I was sitting down with one of my team members just a few minutes ago. I sat down with one of my team members and asked about their mother. How's their mother doing? They were going through a hard time. Do they have enough time off to be able to care for the mom? So I literally dictate everything that I did that day. And then now with Chad, I'll say, hey, my value is $3,000 an hour. Which of these items did not generate the equivalent of $3,000 an hour? And I know what it's going to tell me today. It's going to say, you probably should not write those emails, those sales emails. Can we automate that? So as I now start looking at what I like, and it may be say, you know what, the team member, you don't spend that much time with the team member. And I'm going to say, no, I want to be the big boss who cares for the team. I want to be there and help and connect with them. So no, that's value to me. So at the end of the day, I can look and I can say, hey, here's where my strengths were for the day. Here's the things I really like doing, like talking about her and her mom. I enjoy that. I don't like writing emails. So now if I use that methodology, after about a month of this journey, Joel, I'll have several different job descriptions that I can now look at and say, hey, I need a BA or I need to hire a new employee. And I'm going to take it. I'm going to not hand off. I'm going to say, hey, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm not good at. I don't want to do this anymore. So let me coach you on how you can help me be efficient over here on what I'm really good at. So I've been doing it for 20 years, and that's what led me to focus in on honing on what I'm really, really good at in business or with my team, and really what doesn't ignite my fire.
It's interesting that you focus on the activities, but as a recovering Six Sigma guy, the inputs inform the outputs. And so I think it is that I watch a lot of people only focus on the outcome, right? Well, what result did I get today? And they didn't think about the seeds that were planted a month ago, 6 months ago, but that's a whole nother story. So
That's well said, there, brother. Well said. I think the wisdom you just shared, friends, I want you to listen to your host here, that you're unpacking is phenomenal in the sense that the little things that we do today, even though it may not have the direct output, like that team member that I'm trying to care for, it is planting a seed that will yield a result of equivalent value to my desire at some point in the future. So I think your wisdom there is profound.
I appreciate that. So you dropped it and then you just moved on. $3,000 an hour. My time's valued at $3,000 an hour. I was hosting a mastermind at my home yesterday, and I was talking to a guy. I said, "Hey, what's your hourly rate?" He's like, "I don't have one." I said, "No, but like, what's your hourly rate?" And he's running a 7-figure business. Like, "What's your hourly rate?" He's like, "Man, look, if I can pick up $150 to go do this thing, I'm gonna go do it." I said, "Really?" I said, "So pick a number. What's your number?" He said, $200. I was like, "Okay, so you spent 3 hours doing this thing. You made $150 for the company or $300 for the company, something like that." I said, "So you paid $300 to do that task. How's that feel?" And I think that most people don't actually prize their time. And when you put a dollar amount on it, I think you can see how valuable it is. But a lot of people are like, well, if I'm not selling the time, then I might as well do something with it, even if it's not something I would desire to do. I suspect that you won't agree with that, but I wanted to put that out there and see what you do with it.
Well, I think the magic is in the words that you said, not selling their time. Because I don't think as a business owner, we should be selling our time, but I had to have some sorts of measurement, right? So let me come back to how I structure my week. So for me, Saturdays and Sundays are holy. Like, don't touch them. Saturdays are with me and my family, and Sundays I go to church, I play the keys, and I spend time with my wife. That's our date night. So I don't even look at business on Saturdays and Sundays. Monday for me is the time that I'm the CEO. I'm here looking at my business. I don't think about client facing. I don't think about the technical side. I don't think about my skill set. It's like, what are we winning at in business proper? And every Monday, I'm strategic planning for that week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is my production time. That's whenever I'm doing podcasts like with you today. I'm creating content. I'm in front of a camera. I'm in front of clientele. I'm in front of a vendor. I'm doing business, right? Production time. And then Friday is blocked off for me to recap and kind of pick up those pieces. So I know for me personally, and I realize that calendar doesn't work for everybody. I get that, but that's my calendar. So for me personally, I have 3 days in which I am producing. So therefore, if I'm working 3 days and I don't want to be owned by my business, then I need to make sure that my production time during those 3 days is providing an income rate that'll help me meet that particular goal for that particular action. So let's dissect it any further. If I'm on stage speaking, my hourly rate is $20,000 an hour if I'm on stage speaking. If I'm doing a podcast like this with you, my hourly rate is much lower than that because I'm creating a different seed. If I'm consulting with somebody as a coach, my rate, depending on where they're at and what offer I'm doing, it can be $3,000 to $20,000 an hour. It depends on what we're specifically doing. But the point is that as a business owner, I have to organize my life in such a way that I can relinquish duties, that I can focus down onto a set time frame with a set outcome, and then have a measurable outcome. So for me, it's a rate. So I use $3,000 an hour as that particular rate for that particular example. But when you step back and look at it as a CEO, we have to have a structure in place that allows us to hit our efficiency. And for me, tracking it down for $1 per minute or $1 per hour is how I can do that.
It makes it really easy. For me, it's just a decision-making tool, right? There's the things that you're going to do because you love doing them. They fill your soul. And it's hard to put a dollar amount on them, but you're going to do it because it has a different valuation outside of money. I love not selling your time as a CEO. I just think a lot of people don't put value on it if they can't tie it to a dollar amount. And I haven't figured out a way to communicate that concept without the dollar. So I appreciate that. So, man, I, I just feel like every time you talk, there's a new thread to run down. Okay, so I'm gonna pull in this thread because this is really exciting for me. You've had all these exits. You mentioned it, and then you ran off from it. And I feel like people miss it. You said you take months off and you don't work the weekend. So do you count how many days off you take a year?
No, no, what I do, and I'll say it this way. My coach used to preach to me this way. He would say, show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities. Scripture says, show me your dollars, you'll show you your priorities. To me, if you put the two together, you can see what you really desire in your life. So for me and my family, what we do is I've already kind of laid out my weekly events. I don't work Fridays or Saturdays and Sundays because that's my family time. And to me, my biggest calling in my life is to invest in my children and my wife and be the father and the husband I can be, the greatest person I can be for them. That's my number one calling. Well, if I say that and I don't prioritize that action, then I'm a hypocrite. And I don't like that word, right? So then I look at my life and I'll say, you know what? For example, I am leaving with my brother in 45 days, and I'm going stag hunting in the Patagonian mountains of South America for 2 weeks, turning everything off. The month after that, my wife and I'm going to speak at a national conference with about 5,000 attendees. Then my wife and I, 10 days after that, we're going to the Caribbean, just she and I, and I'm taking a time off. The month of July, I'm going to the Florida Keys with my family, and I'm having a couple of friends come down, and I'm not working. And I know you know what I want to do during the November, December. College football is going to be, I'm going to be hunting and fishing and doing all these fun things. So for me, it's about looking at my life and scheduling my life in such a way that fulfills my values. Now, here's what's interesting. As a business owner, I know what you're thinking about, the people who are listening to me. You're saying, well, that's good, Justin. You've been doing it for 30 years. There's no way. I want to take us back just a few years ago. In recent history, we had this thing called COVID. And if you could learn one valuable lesson from COVID, it could change your life for the rest of your life. And that is this. I saw, because of mandates, companies, let's say a dentist, just let's put a face with this solution. I saw a dentist that was mandatorily closed for 16 weeks, 4 months closed. But because they compressed their time when they opened and they got hyper efficient around serving their patients and meeting them where they were, even though they took 4 months off during that calendar year and they only produced it 8 months of the year, during that 8 time of hyper efficiency, they actually produced more revenue than the previous year when there was no COVID. Why? Because they focused in on what mattered most in that business. See, we teach about the rule of 80-20. I love the principle where he said, hey, 20% of our output generates 80% of results. I'm going to take it a step further. Let's square the 80-20. Reality is 4%, and only 4% of your output generates 64% of your results. So the dentists that were focusing on in that example during that time period, they had to come back to the office and focus on the 4%, not 20%. And by focusing on the 4%, they yielded a much larger outcome. So the reality is each of us as business owners can take the unlimited amount of time off that we desire if we get so laser focused on what that 4% is. So Jerome, that's the principle that I learned years ago. And then we saw it come to life. You're shaking your head because you saw it personally. You saw it with other people that you probably are coaching.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff right here. So, I count days off. People get big eyes when I say 194 for 2024. Like 194 for 2024. And like, man, how? I was like, well, you put it on the calendar and then you honor the calendar is a big part of it. And then it's an efficiency conversation too, because I remember when I was working 5 days a week, 25 coaching calls a week, and how exhausted I was and didn't make much difference in money. I was like, what in the world is going on? And it's the 4%. It's finding the people that you really want to work with, who you can have a big impact for. And they tend to value a little bit more when you're working with the right folks. And I see people running around and doing things backwards, kind of like the example from the mastermind where we're, spending $300. We're paying our client $300 for them to give us $300. I make that trade all day if I'm the client. So it just makes me smile on the inside, man. Some people are going to say, how can you operate a company and just disappear for weeks at a time? What's your response?
Yeah, is I'm not create a company, I create a system. How does a vehicle, whenever I go out and push a button on my truck, does it not fire up every single time? Well, it's because there's a system involved. When you push a button, you get this outcome. So in my companies, what I did is I created a system to maximize the outcome for, get this, the customer, the employee, and the owner, while at the same time creating value. So for us as business owners, we are so used to chasing our tail. We're so used to trying to cater to every whim out there because we're not focused or hyper-focused on one thing, that is creating a company that's valuable. Whenever we create a company that's valuable, what I mean by that is if somebody from the outside, somebody who has capital, were to say, hey, Jerome, hey, Justin, y'all are in business together, man. I want to see your company. How many days? You took 194 days off, man. You've got a system in place now that I can buy. I can remove you from the scene. I can put some dollars into it and I can scale that system. So for me, as I'm building companies, including my coaching company for financial advisors, as I'm building these things, I'm doing so with the mindset of my client. I use this word very targetedly, Jerome. We have customers and we have clients. The customer is the person who pays us for our service. The client is the person in the future who's going to pay us to buy our company from us. So my client out there wants my company to be designed a certain way that when they look at this, it's not centered around Justin, the personality, because personalities can't scale. It's centered around operational structure, serving one particular avatar to solve one particular problem to give one proven outcome. And if I can do that through a structure, now it's not about me. It's about me building a system that allows me to plug and play people, clientele, software, whatever the thing is. It doesn't matter to me. I'm building a structure that allows me to plug and play so that it can scale. And instead of scaling it out the end, what I may do is plateau it and say, you know what, I'm still good right now. I now have freedom. I now have received this much income off the business value is increasing, and now I'm going to take 194 days off or 184 days off a year. That's because we have built a system that meets our clients, the employees, and the buyer all unanimously, all simultaneously.
Wow. And so this kind of pulls into the conversation we had. Another person at the mastermind is like, yeah, the clients just want me, right? They're convinced that I'm the reason why. I said, well, you got to sell the system. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, you got to have a framework. You got to have some thought leadership out there so that they understand that the system produces the results, which is what you just said, which is exciting for me. For the folks out there who are producers, right? They are in production. They are the one. And I had a mentor who told me, hey, the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. And it popped my little bubble because I think many entrepreneurs want to justify themselves and improve their worth. And so I get to the place of saying, well, how do you transition from the fastest way to monetize, which is your personal brand, to moving into a system? I mean, you're in Tennessee, so I mean, you guys got Dave Ramsey there. It's been really cool to watch his transition. But what do you say when it's like, hey, it's not me, it's the system that's getting the outcome for you?
I'm going to give you the exact words my coach gave me, because I still have coaches in my life, because I believe that any of us who are business owners, we're only as good as the coaching we receive. If we don't have a coach, then shame on you. You should not be a business owner, period. I'm going to die on that statement, okay? But my coach told me one day, I made the statement very similar perhaps to one of your clients who's reflecting. I said, but you understand, they want me. I'm the guy who wrote the books. I'm the guy who's on national TV. I'm the guy who came with this brainchild. And he said, you're the most self-centered person I've ever seen in my life. I went, what? And I get back into that hole that I just dug, right? I mean, he started laughing like, you're laughing at me now. And I'm like, just like white face. I got mad. I'm like, and he's like, think about it. Think about it. If it's totally built around you, Justin Goodbread, and you have not trained the next person to step in that position, and so that you can move upstream and bring somebody else in there, or if it's not, you haven't dumped your brain out to where somebody can duplicate it, then you're going to die one day, and all the wisdom that you've gathered, you're self-centered in the fact it's not going to be left for people to take. Jerome, that was like smack across the face, brother. I can remember sitting there, and every emotion that a business owner, we're pretty dominant people. We'll charge hell with a water pistol. And I'm like, dude, okay. So if I'm going to be a leader, what a true leader is going to be, and what a true producer is going to be, is create a framework that's successful. And let me teach somebody else. So here's where it gets magical. Not only does it help us in business, but it also helps us on personal finance. You realize if you can actually create a structure, you can brand and get IP for that, then you can create advanced tax strategies for yourself. But so many of us don't even think that way because it's all about us. We're self-centered and we're egotistical. Now, let's be fair to ourselves, though. We are the people who have been beat up. We are the people who have failed often. We are the people who have the blood, the sweat, the tears, the scars, the wounds. We are the people who perhaps designed the product, and we know our customer better. They know themselves, and we know the solution our product can build. We get all that, and I'm with you, and I want to praise you and support you as a business owner in that area. However, if we do not move our knowledge, our IP, and everything into a structure, then we will never have the freedom that we desire. We're going to forever be handcuffed. We're not going to have the life of luxury that perhaps we desire. We're not going to have that dream. That the reason why I went into business for most of us was, man, I'm not going to work 70 hours a week. I'm going to work 20 hours a week. We're not going to ever achieve that. And more importantly, we're going to be a statistic that says that 80% of our net worth is in our business, and only about 20% of us actually ever get the money out of our business. And so for business owners I talk to have thousands per year, we're broke. Why? Because it's all about us. We're the epicenter of our business. The number one driving factor for your company, write this down, take it to the bank, quote me on it, I don't care. The number one driving factor for your business, for your value, is to remove yourself from the epicenter of the business. The minute you build the golden goose, friends, you won the game.
So this then takes me to the place that everybody's asking right now. How do you get out of the sales? Because every founder is the best salesperson.
Yep. This was a hard lesson for me to learn. It is one that I challenged my coach with for literally 6 months. And he was persistently patient with me. And afterwards, God had this sense of humor. It was silly. I laugh about it today. At the time, it wasn't funny. So he's telling me, John, he's saying, hey, Goodbread, you can't sell anymore. Hey, Goodbread, you can't sell anymore. Goodbread, you're good at sales, but I need you to build a sales team. I need you to build a sales process. I need you to teach others how to do what you've done. Now, I'm winning national awards. I mean, I'm literally the guy, the Mac Daddy at the age of 30. My head's so big, he came through a door, right? And so I said, okay, I'll commit to it. I brought in a new team member. We worked together for about 6 months to 8 months. He understood my process and everything. And the day came when I wasn't going to take the sales call. This is so funny. And it's going to happen to all of us. It's just classic to me. The day the guy calls, if we had a new sales call come in, And he fills out the intake form, and Jerome, it was the single largest client we ever had. Single largest. Never before have I seen a client at this value. So here I am, like, wanting to jump back in. And I told my coach, like, no, you can't do it. So I literally sit in his office because I'm the control freak. I sit in his office on the floor with a whiteboard, the small whiteboard, and he has the client on speakerphone. And so he's talking, I'm writing things down, flipping around, and he finally just he took the whiteboard, threw it across the room, and turned and looked away from me and closed the deal. Closed the deal.
Your biggest client ever.
Ever by himself. He followed all my frameworks by himself. And we got done. He looked at me, my employee looked at me as the boss. He said, point his finger, don't you ever do that to me again. Either you trust me or you don't. Now leave me alone. Let me do the job you already do. So now I have my employee who just had the biggest client. I'm like, I never closed one that big. My coach is over here screaming at me. I'm a hard-headed individual. But I had two people that I cared about coaching at me. So it's not a lesson that I easily learn. But I can tell you that the sooner I went to that pain point, right after that, my company profit margin grew 45% the next 12 months. The day I started backing out, the profit of the company's value went through the roof.
That can be tough on your ego.
I didn't have an ego. I mean, you took it out, stepped on it, dude.
It's funny because like the validation that we seek from our businesses can be the reason why we don't have success. Like we're in our own way. We don't want people, it sounds terrible. We'll hire folks and we don't want them to be successful because then it proves that we're good at the thing. And you're like, what are you talking about? Think about it, man. When's the last time you wanted somebody to be better than you at the thing that you've kind of hung your hat on at being good at? It's tough.
My coach says it this way, and as you and I have the opportunity and the privilege to influence others, my coach said it this way. I want to coach you a little bit, draw with this. He said one day, he goes, "Hey, Goodbread, the rule of 80-20 works. Benevolence works for everything." He goes, "And the reality is, I'm going to give you a bunch of information, and only about 20% of it's going to change your life. But here's how you'll know it's going to change your life: when you don't like it. Whenever I tell you what to do and you don't like it, that is the coaching that you need. That is the one that you should listen to. If you like it, disregard it." And brother, after I learned that principle, we would have conversations. And he's like, "Do you want anything today?" I'm like, "No, not really, because I'll see you next week. I'll see you next month," and whatever the thing was. And it literally was about 4 or 5 meetings of coaching per year that unlocked that 20%. The rest of the time was needed, but it wasn't like really challenging me and moving me. It was those things I didn't want to hear. So you and I had the privilege as we talk to people to lean into them and help them understand that the things that they don't want to hear, that's really what's going to unlock the solution for them.
I've never heard it put that way, but it's very interesting because every time that I see a big opportunity for folks, I say, "I'm about to tell you something you don't want to hear, or I'm about to tell you something you're not going to like. And if you do it, but if you trust me and you do it, you're going to get an outcome that you can't even fathom." A lot of what we've talked about today is adjusting or breaking frames. I listened to you move through landscaping, financial services, dental, back to financial services. And it's like, if you think about those problems in the exact same way each time, you're probably not going to unlock value. I know that you're a professor with Exit Planning Institute. I watched a couple of your videos in the past, and I think most people don't actually understand where value comes from. So can we go down the value path a little bit? You've mentioned it a few times, but I don't think we've actually defined it. And I don't think we've actually talked about what actually builds it.
Yeah. So let's define value. When we talk about value, I use the term of intrinsic value. So let's kind of bring it out of our business so we can have this base level of understanding. If I have a house, then there may be what's called a fair market value or market value. Those are two slightly different definitions, but that is where my house compared to another house in the neighborhood, it's pretty much priced properly. But in the same house, if I'm going through bankruptcy, the bank will look at collateralized value. Okay. Or if I go into a forfeiture, it may be a liquidation value. So there's several different types of values. For us as business owners, what we're looking for is the intrinsic value. And that's comprised of basically all of our hard assets, the things like that equipment I mentioned that individual before, IP, intellectual property, things of that nature in the company. And then there's the soft assets, the things that really cause the business to be that golden goose. So when we're looking at value in a company, every company has value. If you have a website, you have value. Every company has value. What we're looking for as business owners is how do we make it a transferable value? How do we make the value where somebody from the outside says, "Oh my goodness, you have a business, not a job, you have a business that I can buy. I can have the assets," whether that be customer capital, structural capital, it could be social capital, how the industry or the community views you. There's all these different things that cause the value to be there. So what we have to look at whenever we're business owners is, how do I take this and make this attractive to that client? That person wants to perhaps buy it from me in the future. How do I provide them a machine that will solve one person's problems, attract one person, solve their problems, deliver them unbelievable results? So when we talk about value, that's what we're talking about, transferable value. Now, how do we build value? There's several ways. So I teach there's 8 areas of business, right? When all of our businesses have this, your business drawn has it, my businesses have it. So it's the planning component, leadership, those are the first 2, sales and marketing, next 2, people, our team, subcontractors, people and operations are the next 2 components, and then finally finance and legal. So there's 8 areas of business, okay, that all of us are wrestling with at any given time. In each of those 8 areas of business, there are 8 main value drivers, things that will cause that company to increase in value or decrease in value. We've already mentioned one of them here today, and that's owner dependence. If the company is comprised where the owner is the epicenter of the business and they're the top salesperson, everything has to flow through them, then there's nothing I can buy, because if I were to remove you from that company, more than likely the financials are going to fall. Another one, I can't go through all these for our time's sake, but another one is recurring revenue, right? Do we have an ability to have revenue that's recurring? And what I mean by recurring revenue, is this going to happen without me having to show up to do the job? We have a system in place that's going to generate the revenue for us. I've yet to see a company that can't have recurring revenue out there. Every company can have recurring revenue. And you may be saying, Goodbread, it's not possible. Yes, it is. I'm telling you it is. Every company can have recurring revenue. So there's a lot of things that drive value. At the end of the day, it boils down to this. We have a company that has somebody out here says, hey, I think it's worth X. And what they're looking for is, if they were to buy X, can they get a return on their capital? Can they get a return on that purchase price? In the same way that we would look at a house and say, hey, the house is worth this. And if I were to make some improvements and I were to pay down the mortgage, and the market appreciation is going to move over a period of time. So value is a transferable price that somebody's willing to buy. How do we make it? How do we increase the value, make that house or our business more attractive to that future buyer?
I love you use the real estate example, because it's something that most people get, and it's usually their largest asset. And for business owners, if they build something of size, the business is their largest asset. And so this is a very good parallelism. Kind of the last phase of this conversation I like to go into is fulfillment. You've said it 3 or 4 times, and probably 3 or 4 times before we started recording. I don't think most people understand that having a post-exit plan is something that's going to be extremely valuable for them as they go through the exit process. I think a lot of folks only focus on valuation, and they forget that they're going to be left behind after the business is gone. Going through 7 exits yourself, helping other people exit. What are your thoughts around this? Because I built a whole business on it, but I've got a whole lot of thoughts around it, but very few people have the level of experience you have with exits.
So I believe somebody else's experience is a far better teacher than our own. I believe that with all my heart. And statistics say that for business owners who exit, only 4% of them are happy after the fact. That means 96% of business owners who exit feel dissatisfied for some reason. So that being said, I wanted to backwards engineer in my own life. How do I walk away from, quote, my baby and move on? So I had this question from a client who's considering, he's a financial advisor considering selling his business. And he said, Justin, this is all I know. This is who I am. I said, that's not who you are. My coach said this to me, Jerron, it shook me up a core. He said, Justin, if you have unlimited time and unlimited resources, what would you do tomorrow that you're not doing today? Now, at that point, when he asked that question, my wife is laid up in a hospital with COVID, and we didn't think she was going to live. And my answer to him at that time was, I would spend more time with my wife and my family, and I'd impact people beyond a measure. I don't need any more money. My wife did ask me the question. She said, Justin, guys, this is not me beating my chest. I try to be the most humble person out there, but she literally asked me this question, and it shook me to the core. So I want to be authentic with you. She said, Justin, what's another $1 million going to do for us? Nothing. I live a very simple life. I travel a lot, but I live a very simple life. We have a small home in the country. I drive a Ford F-150. I'm just a simple guy, It's like, it's not going to change much. So when I put those 2 questions together for myself, as I'm a business owner contemplating this potential exit, it came down to, you know what? God's given me one life to live. He's allowed me to live an unbelievable life up to this journey. What can the next chapter be? And my coach, as I'm thinking through this, he said, Justin, I'm 46 years of age today. He goes, you're 40, at the time I was early 40s. He said, you're early 40s. With everything you've lived through, imagine what impact, because that's my life word is impact. Imagine what impact you could have on people all around you with the remaining life, hopefully many decades ahead of you, plus resources. What would you do different? I'm like, man, well, I can tell you what I wouldn't do. So we began working backwards, just like most of us do, backwards engineering it. And it came down for me that I want to help my brothers and sisters who are business owners, because I believe we're the backbone of our civilization. I believe we help more people than anybody else, especially the government and all the other areas out there. I believe that those of us who are entrepreneurs are the most selfless people ever. And so for me, it came down to the point of, you know what, if my calling in life is to pour all of my God-given talents and my abilities and all the pain, all the harm, all the benefits, everything I've gone through my season of life, if I can pour that into you, Jerome, and leave you better, if I can pour into the people who are listening to this podcast, if I can pour it into the people who have the privilege to coach, my children, my wife, my friends, my charities, then brother, whenever I go to my grave one day and my children are around me or I'm in the hospital bed, they can look back and say, man, my dad cared deeply about me. My dad cared deeply about every person he had the privilege to meet. He left them better. Brother, I don't know about you, but now I'm 40 years old looking back on 30 decades of being a business owner, struggles, successes, everything. Now I'm looking forward to perhaps, hopefully, the next 40 years of my life. I want the next 40 years of my life to impact a world in such a way that they can look back and say, man, that Goodbread, he helped me. That to me is legacy, more so than a business, more so than dollars in the bank. So that's just where I'm at in my life. So I think for the business owner out there, answer the question. If you had a limited time and limited resources, what would you do tomorrow that you're not doing today? And I think as you soul search that question, you may have the answer at your disposal. And then now, as you answer that question in your present case, and as we're recording this, we're dealing with friends of ours who are facing devastation around the country. California's, man, it's on fire. The mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee got devastated by a hurricane. There's a lot of pain right now. So as we begin soul searching, especially business owners, if we can answer that question, Jerome, we then find our purpose, we then find our calling, and then we look at our business as an asset, not as our identity. And that is the release for us.
I love the business as an asset. And I think we talked about it a little bit with the real estate example. I appreciate your heart. I don't think most people understand that they're placed here to be of service. And although you didn't use the word, that's what you have found your place in doing. Unlimited time, unlimited resources. What would you do? When we do our workshop, I like to ask people, hey, how many hours do you work a week? And they give me their number. And depending on their ego, they tell me somewhere between 30 and 90 hours a week. And I say, okay, so let's take that 90 hours that you're working and take it away. What would you do? And they sit there blank. I don't know what I would do. And work's my hobby. And I hear a lot of this stuff. When the business actually becomes an asset and you have your own identity, I think you end up in a very special place because you're independent instead of dependent or codependent, which I don't think most mental health professionals would think that's a good idea for you. But, you know, we as business owners, we tell the people that we love that we're doing it for them. And in fact, we're probably just making ourselves sicker. This fulfillment question is one that I think so many people skip over, and it's messy. And I think that's why a lot of exit planners or coaches or consultants don't want to deal with it. They want to figure out the math. They want to get to the transaction and they want to get out. Have you seen any founders exit and end up in a bad spot, what we call a founder's exit paradox, once they have unlimited time and resources?
Yeah, where I see, yes, to answer your question directly, yes, I've seen it more frequently than I would desire. And I think the reason behind it is a feeling of failure, in the sense that all they've known is this business and it's their identity. And when they describe themselves, we meet people like this, hey, what do you do? Who are you? Well, I'm a, and then they list their occupation. That's not who you are. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a pianist. I'm a hunter. I love reading. I'm a nerd. I'm thinking all these things. But yeah, I'm also a business owner. That's just part of who I am. I think they have this sense of failure, in the sense that they look at this, they had this purpose in life to drive their company to whatever level they were trying to drive it. It was this innate passion. They also are seeing the media, which I think is so flawed for us, especially social media. This hustle culture, I think, is toxic, in the sense that I literally saw somebody who I deeply respect. If I called their name, everybody would recognize this person. They literally pointed at their watch and said, it's 4:15 in the morning, hustling, let's get up and grind. And then at 11:30 at night, still grinding. And I'm going, dude, if I did that, I would not be married. I'd not have children. I wouldn't be able to live a life of fulfillment. So I think the business owners, those who have that regret, look at this culture. They attach their identity to this culture. They attach their identity to that, constantly striving for that more, more, more. And they've never felt self-fulfillment. They've never felt contentment. I mean, let's break it out of the business side. Let's get down to humans. My wife asked me a simple question. Justin, what's the $1 million going to do for us? And if we're honest, again, this isn't me beat my chest. I hope y'all hear me on this. It's me the reality was like, she's on her deathbed. And it's almost like she took her fist and smacked me across my face, Jerome. It was nothing. Now, whenever I could honestly verbalize that, and then think about the question I asked, unlimited time, unlimited resources, not unlimited money, unlimited resources. I didn't say money. Resources could be anything. It could be talents. It could be influence. It could be a client list. It could be money. It could be time. It could be a lot of different things. Whenever I started looking at that, I was like, you know what? The business is simple. And I think so many founders, so many business owners who go through an exit, they never take a step back and say, who am I? Why did God put me here? What did the last decade, 2, 3, 4, what did I learn in that? So I can now turn around and give a hand up to somebody else so that now I can serve them and allow them to not go through the same pain points I have. So even my own life right now, I'm serving financial advisors. Why? Because I was a financial advisor. I'm best equipped to serve the person I once was, right? So I can turn around them and say, guys, I want to get paid fair, but I also want to help you not make the same dumb mistakes that I made. So whenever we look at ourselves at who we are as founders, we don't have to have that regret or that feel of failure that so many people have when they leave their companies. We can now start looking internally and saying, who am I without this company? And who am I best equipped to serve?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Justin, if the folks want to learn more about you and what you have going on, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, man, I would say check out the YouTube channel. I teach, and there's a video that goes out every week. You yourself have looked at it. You can go to YouTube, just search my name, Justin Goodbread. Or if you want to see my life of freedom, I live vicariously through Instagram. We share things out there. You'll see some coaching tips and you'll see a lot of different things on Instagram. So I would direct folks to those 2 channels. From there, you can spawn into my little world. It has all my books and all my teaching and courses and all that stuff. But those 2 channels is where I'd have people to go and direct them to.
And what's the handle on Instagram?
It's Justin Goodbread. Simple. I'm a simple boy, man. That's all I know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And then, you've got a vast network. Is there anybody else you think should be on the show?
Well, I wasn't prepared for that question. Who specifically, I have a vast network. Who specifically do you believe? So here's a trick, friends, as a coach, as a business owner. If you don't know how to answer a question, turn around and ask the question back to the person. So I'm going to rephrase the question, Joel. Who do you think has started a narrative or an archetype or avatar? Who do you think is best equipped to serve your audience?
So there's 2 folks. We love to share the story of people who went through exits, experienced the exit paradox, because I think a lot of people don't think that they're going to experience any pain on their exit. And so people who can tell that story clearly and how they move through that pain are great examples, because I think we can learn from the experience of other people.
Okay, here's what just happened. Let me do a little coaching. Most of us never nail down one specific avatar as business owners, and we were scared about that. But what you just did, by giving me somebody crystal clear, I can tell you that my friend Ali Nasser would directly fit that particular detailed question. Why? Because he's experienced everything you just described. So for those of us who are business owners, the things that you and I can coach our clients on is get specific with who you serve. That way I can pair, in my mind, out of this vast network down to 1 or 2 people. So I would tell you Ali Nasser is the person I recommend. He's a good buddy of mine, and I'll make the introduction for you.
Thank you so much, man. So to the listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks again, Justin.